Hello, my name is Sam. The act that I was given to research was the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. That act was ratified in 1988 and is known as the quote Warn Act, WARN Act. It was initiated by the U.S. labor laws, which is intended to protect employees, their families, and the communities that the businesses that are in by requiring the employers that have 100 employees or more to provide a 60-day notice, calendar day notice, not work day. It does specify that a 60-day calendar notice in advanced of notification of either a plant closing or mass layoffs, uh, et cetera, stuff like that. Like they're going to be getting rid of a lot of people really quickly. Um, the reason that this was enacted is to give the opportunity for the workers that are going to be affected ample time to either find new employment or prepare for the adjustment or possibly retool themselves for a different position within the company or with a different company. If they need to go back to school for training or something like that, it gives them the opportunity to do so. It also requires that, along with the notification of the workers and the families, it also have to let the any labor unions that might be affected know, elected officials within the communities, like your mayor or something like that, so the community can adjust in case of a failing uh, market or something like that. Kind of like if NASCAR went up belly up, that this community would need to readjust for that because obviously it's a big thing around here. Some of the explanations that were given as to who is a quote covered worker. It's pretty much any company that has 100 employees or more, as I stated, not counting those who have worked fewer than 6 months within the past 12 months. So you have to be at least a 6 month old employee, or if you work less than 20 hours a week. So if you're a part time employee that works less than 20 hours, you are not covered as well. Um, you have to be. It is it accounts for anybody who is a manager, supervisor, whether you're hourly or salaried, as long as you are working more than 20 hours and longer than 6 months, you are covered under the Warn Act. Um, Workers participating there's quite a few exceptions to the Warren Act. If the workers are participating in an active strike situation or they've been locked out due to labor disputes, then they are not the company is not required to let the employees know that they're being terminated, which is actually a really interesting thing. I do find that kind of surprising. Um, Workers who are on temporary projects or work on facilities that are temporary, like your seasonal workers or something like that, those workers are not covered under the Warren Act, given that when they were hired knowing that they were going to be seasonal and that at the end of the season they were likely going to be terminated. If they did not know that when they were hired, or if it wasn't disclosed, then they aren't seasonal employees and they are covered as long as they meet the 20-hour 6 month criteria. Um, any federal, state, and local government employees are not covered under this act, which is another surprising element of it. That since this covers workers within the workplace, that they are going to be laid off, yet government workers don't count. Um, it's really interesting. And then obviously, if you are contract employee, this one makes a lot of sense. If you're contracted labor or anything like that, where you're not an employee of the company, but you're just like someone who's on a what is it, a 1099 contracted labor, then obviously you're not an employee, so you don't fall under the act. Um, Some also other interesting things where the act itself is an exception is again reiterating that it is uh, a strike situation. If you're in a strike, then sorry, it doesn't apply. If the facility closes because of that's a strike or workout. Right. If the plant closes and it results in fewer than 50 workers losing their job at a single location, then you don't have to send notice. If there is 50 to 499 workers losing their jobs, but it's still less than 1/3 of the total active employment at a single location, then also they don't have to notify, which is a really surprisingly large number. What I can think about is like I grew up in Florida, and my mom works for Boeing at the Kennedy Space Center with NASA and everything like that. And when the shuttle program was ending and Obama nixed the next program that was following up to it, there was a lot of layoffs, and inevitably, like 10,000 people lost their jobs over a 5-year period or something like that. But they did it to where every single time it was 50 people or less, they would lose their jobs, but it came in waves. They still gave notice, but it was, if I recall correctly, it wasn't like 60 days beforehand. It was relatively quick. Um, so I do find that kind of interesting. And then finally, if the layoff is expected to be 6 months or less, so like it's a seasonal layoff. Let's say you're a construction worker and you know you're not going to be working during the winter because you can't, kind of a thing. Um, and if it is work hours are not reduced by 50% each month or any 6 month period. Some of the exceptions of where a notice needs to be given, but you don't have to fulfill 60 days, is if the company is faltering. If a company just kind of goes out of business, then it's not necessary that they give a 60-day notice. It's suggested, but it's kind of understandable. If they do their best to try and kind of explain ahead of time. If there's unforeseeable business expenses, uh, basically saying if there's some type of situation that causes the business to close that isn't described as business failure or faltering company. And then obviously if there's a natural disaster, since there's a big hurricane that's off the coast of Florida right now, if that hurricane were to blow a business completely off the face of the planet, obviously the workers don't have anywhere to work. Sorry, can't really give 60-day notice on that one because that's unforeseeable natural disaster. So, yeah, those are some exceptions of it. And let me know if you have any questions. It seems pretty straightforward. I really like this law because it is legitimately important that it's like, hey, you're not just going to get blindsided with, oh, by the way, you don't work for us anymore, kind of thing. And I really like that it makes sure to take care of the people and what they're doing to take care of their people, I guess you could say, is what I'm trying to say. So thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.